Welcome to the Previously Rockhounding podcast, where we explore the world of rockhounding and lapidary from the ye olden days of the 1970s and 80s through the lens of vintage issues of Rock and Gem magazine.
This is episode 13. We're looking at Rock and Gem magazine from December 1977.
If you're a new listener here, the way this works is I read the issue, Sarah reads the issue, we don't discuss it at all, and we come together here on the podcast and share our thoughts on it.
What was your thoughts?
I liked this one. I thought there was a number of really interesting articles in it. But before we get into some of the articles, I think the ads. I almost feel like I learn more sometimes from the interesting ads that we see in these. Mm-hmm. And it really makes me curious to see like future issues and what is it the same? If you pick up a Rock and Gem from 2022 and you read the ads, are you like, fascinating? I don't know if that's really the case.
Yeah.
So there was a full page ad for two faceting machines from the Graves Company, and the top of it read, "An investment your banker would approve." And I always find the investing angle to be interesting on stuff. Like, I tried looking this up to see like when language around the advertising kind of changed. And it was really hard because I do know there's laws put in place as far as what you can call an investment. Like I can't legally say, buy this item. It's an investment, because investment means like a very specific thing, like buying stocks, right? Investing in your 401k is an investment.
Yeah.
And even with that, I can't legally tell you to like how to go invest because I'm not like a certified I'm not legally able to be like, Sarah, go put your money in blank, right? So it's interesting to see when they're like, buy this machine, start cutting gems, it's an investment. You'll make your money back.
I mean, do they say that in other words now? I mean, you can say that without using the word investment. You can be like, buy this machine. You can cut rocks with it and it pays for itself. Like,
yeah, I think you could say that, but you can't say that that is an investment. And that's the thing there. That
investment implies you get it and you do nothing and then it's worth more money.
I don't know. I mean, investment properties where you do a remodel and then rent it, that would be an investment that did require...
Yeah, that's true. I guess so.
I mean, investment kind of implies that there's like a rate of return post-ownership. And maybe that's just kind of how we currently think of the word investing, and the way it was more loose. It's a more loose usage, I guess.
Yeah. I thought the ads were a little more cartoony than usual. Like there was more ads with a cartoon guy. There was an ad with a cartoon lady at a microphone, and it was because the company, it said 58 years before the first radio broadcast, we were like making machines. And so it was that
was Covington, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They always have ads like that where they're like, look at how old we are.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, there's like a lady at a microphone. She wasn't like in a booth doing the radio. She was like standing at a microphone. It was not the image I would think to sell Covington machines.
It's really deceptive though when companies do that, because they weren't making like lapidary equipment that whole time.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a lot of companies that we know of today that are still around that had their beginnings in an entirely different industry than what we know them as today. So it's not really, it's like if I said, I've been taking care of animals for 39 years. And you're like, well, wait, that means you were born and took care of it? No, like obviously it's different. You don't count the years growing up and you had a pet,
And yet people do.
Yeah. There was an ad for Milan Silver and Gold, who makes jewelry. And I thought the headline of this ad was really interesting. In some parts of the country, manufacturing is associated with noise, pollution, and factories. Here in the Southwest, it's associated with the hands. So I guess the implication there is that everywhere outside of the southwestern United States is like dirty, gross, and loud.
Yeah, I guess so.
And
I mean, they're thinking like giant factories with smokestacks and machinery versus like I thought it was implying like Native Americans making the jewelry. And they're like, we're old fashioned, the native earth friendly spirit way versus those other people are dirty and loud.
guess
Yeah,
I thought that was really weird. That's just like a weird way of
Yeah.
like framing the pitch, you know? And I mean, even today, spoiler everybody, most factories, your stuff is just made by hand.
Hands are involved
Yes, like
at many points.
the concept of having like everything being done by robots in a factory is just like shows that's not how most robots or factories are utilized whatsoever. It's just like a long line of people doing stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was funny that they're just like in the Southwest we make everything by hand. Outside of the Southwest, it's basically
Ew.
a dirty old sweatshop.
Yes. There was an ad for, it said, for beautiful ladies. Agate necklace, pendant, earrings, bracelet, ring, keychain. All of that for $20. You just had to mail your money to West Germany and they would send it over. Only for beautiful ladies.
Sorry, ugly ladies, no keychains
Yeah.
for you. Your keys will go unadorned.
They also had another ad, and it didn't say beautiful ladies, but it was the same style and the same place, and it was a $12 diamond ring. What's that gonna look like? That's like
good.
on eBay when they're like, yeah, 14 karat gold necklace, 25 cents.
Yeah, that is not going to look very good,
No.
is it? I saw an ad for the new Griffin Diamond Bandsaw, which is a piece of equipment you never see. Basically, very few people, even today, still have a diamond bandsaw. And for those that don't know, a bandsaw would be like it's a long, loose blade, and you push into it, not a circular blade. So they were selling it for $350 in 1977, and when you adjust that for inflation, that'd be about $1,710 in today's money.
It's a lot.
And the bandsaw, as far as lapidary goes, really never ever caught on. Like it never caught on because the blades are flimsy, they're kind of pricey, they break. It has very like limited usage. It's just not like it's not good in the lapidary world, and you just don't see many people with them. However, there's a company that still makes them. Inland, they make a diamond bandsaw, and you can buy it on Amazon today for $350.
Huh.
So
That's funny. That
Yeah.
would not have been an investment.
no, that's not an investment tool.
I thought there was an ad for chemical testing, and it said, "Are you sitting on a gold mine? Chemical testing for gold, silver, and other valuable minerals. All you have to do is send half a pound sample and $7.50. Seems like a lot. Half a pound to
I
do
think
your
they're-
testing?
Just thinking like a bunch of jewelry that you have, or
No, I think
is it to
you
test
send
your...
half a pound of jewelry.
Yeah.
I think it was, no, it tests for gold, silver, and other valuable minerals. I think you are sending your, like, rough rock.
Oh, so it's like assaying? Like they're
Yeah.
like you send like your ore sample to
Yeah.
them, and okay, that makes more sense.
yeah,
I was like,
no.
wait, what is this?
Yeah. But still, half a pound feels like a lot to send. Especially if you're like, I think this has gold in it. Here's a whole bunch of it. And
Yeah.
money. And they'll be like, yep, has gold. Thanks for half a pound of gold-bearing material.
To be fair, though, when you do have gold-bearing ore, it's like grams per ton. So, like, if you actually had gold-bearing ore and you send it to them for, like, testing, they're going to come back and be like, cool, there's basically nothing in this. And besides,
Yeah.
like, very few people ever actually find something that they can identify enough to understand what it is. And then, yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah, it
just
just seemed like an odd service. I just thought half a pound is a lot to mail in. If they're testing it, what do they need that much for?
I think modern day, like, people want... Today, if you have, like, a large amount of gold-bearing like material, you're basically running samples in a small mill, and like, you know, you're ball milling, you're hammer milling the rock into dust and then putting it on a shaker table, and it's like a whole process.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, you could do like XRF gun scanning, but it's really, you know, not a thing that I would imagine many people took them up on based upon an ad.
There was an ad for a gold alloy, and it said, looks like 14 karat gold, and it was called OK Gold. Like, you couldn't think of a better name than OK Gold.
They did a terrible job at marketing their alloy.
Sounds like a great product. It's okay.
Yeah. A #1 OK Gold alloy. Premium.
That would have been better. Premium gold.
So, would you like to go to Cancun?
Sure.
That's the correct answer here. I would go to Cancun. There is an ad for an organized 14-day rockhounding tour in the greater Cancun, Mexico area, which sounds amazing, right? Like, when I think of Cancun, I think of like spring breakers being obnoxious. I don't necessarily think of rockhound vacation, but if that was a thing that was offered today and you could fly down to Cancun and somebody would be like, have all the hookups at all the different cool mines that are private, and you can go and dig material there and like mail it back to America, I would 100% be into that.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I thought that was kind of cool. So some of the places you would be able to go, they didn't say the actual mines, but they're like, oh, you can go get geodes, opal, malachite, topaz, fire agate. But with 14 days, I'm sure there's like additional things, right?
Huh.
But like, I thought that was the idea of, like, I know some people are doing guided rockhounding trips today, but like, it's kind of meh, right? Like, I'm talking about like, go to this place and we have all this exclusive access that you can only get by us. Like, that is cool. Like, that's cool. I would be into that.
Yeah.
I feel like the Previously Rockhounding podcast is really becoming Jared pitches business ideas. Hopefully, there's some ambitious people listening.
Who have all hookups in Cancun.
Yes.
Exotic places.
I think that'd be fun. That would be fun. I mean, I don't know what Cancun weather is like, but how great would it be if you heavily advertised that to like people living in like Canada and the northern cold parts of America, and you fly down to Cancun in the winter and you have a week or two of fun rockhounding adventures, and it's not spring break for anyone, so it's probably not annoying at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common thing that birding groups do. Like, even if it's like the Audubon Society in Washington or Seattle, they'll be like, we're going on a trip to Peru. Here's how you sign up.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that.
No.
Well, that's all I had for some of the advertisements.
I noticed there was a few non-rock related advertisements. There was one selling Confederate money.
I saw that.
I don't know if there's a big market for that. Can you still sell Confederate money?
Why can't you?
I don't know. It seems like something people wouldn't.
I'm sure there's like a collector's market that,
Yeah.
of people that would be into that.
I don't know if rock and gem hobbyists are into that, but it's like, sure, why not? advertising must have been cheap enough. Maybe it's the December issue and you're like, I know what to get for my brother who lives in West Virginia, a West Virginia state dollar. Oh. There's one selling mastodon ivory. Can you? I didn't see any on eBay. Can you still sell that?
No, we looked it up. They banned the sale of ivory in, was it 2016 or 2018?
But that'd be like elephant ivory, like a mastodon. Not like you're poaching mastodons for their ivory.
Yeah, I don't know.
But also, how would you have a good enough source to sell mastodon ivory?
You're just taking apart. You're just taking apart old pianos.
Yeah, I doubted. I kind of was skeptical of the authenticity. If you have enough.
So, at this time in the 70s, there was a huge world of counterfeit ivory and counterfeit ivory carvings being like made in China, Taiwan, and then being shipped into. I know the UK experienced a lot of it to the point where I actually saw some old like BBC investigative news pieces where they would go to like jewelry shops and like buy something and then come back and be like, "Ha, gotcha! It was fake," and it was like a thing that was happening. So I don't know. I would assume that like, what's really your recourse if it's like a mail order thing?
Yeah.
You know, like.
Just where would you find that much? Like,
Well, I
found like a mass grave of mastodons and all the tusks were intact. Like,
you own some property outside of the La Brea tar pit in Los Angeles, and on occasion, a mastodon tusk floats to the top. And you clean it off, and you're like, sweet, selling it.
put an ad in a magazine to sell this.
Yes.
There was other ads for things that weren't rocks or even. There was just like a PSA. One said, "Perform a death-defying act. Exercise regularly." American Heart Association.
I didn't think it was going to go that direction when you started that.
And there was another one which is not rock related at all, but I thought it was interesting because it's very different from now. It was from the American Cancer Society, and it was a pretty big ad, and it was like a quote from a guy being like, "My doctor told me I was cured of cancer, but my boss didn't know that, so I got fired." Like, people think once you get cancer, you're sick and you're gonna die, but not true anymore. And the ad said, "Today, more and more, cancer is a curable disease. Ignorance about cancer is curable too." Which, I don't know, that's interesting that your boss would fire you because you have cancer. And you're like, "Cool, cancer's gone." And they're like, "Yeah, but you had cancer." So that's such a... So I don't think people have so much more education about cancer now, I think.
Going through the 50s and 60s, I think in a lot of cases, cancer was a straight up like...
Right.
Your days were numbered.
Yeah.
So the idea probably hung around. I mean, if that's... We've talked about people kind of mentally pausing their timelines. Like if in 1955... you read a thing or knew somebody that got cancer and immediately died, and then you stopped reading things and learning about what happened, and then...
Or maybe that was your only experience with cancer. Yeah, I don't know. It's just nobody would think that today.
Yeah.
And it's such a different... Can you imagine being like, "Yeah, my employee had cancer, so I fired him." Like, people would be like, "You're a monster." They have cancer, you're supposed to be like, "You can do it, you're the best, we got you, whatever you need, you can be," like such a... Someone was like, "Oh, I had to fire someone because they had cancer and then they came back to work." Nobody would be on your side on that.
Yeah.
It's very different attitudes now.
The optics of that does not make the business look good.
No. Maybe, I don't know, is it a protected thing? You can't be fired because you have a health problem. I don't know. I don't know if there's like laws also now, potentially. I mean, I assume.
Yeah.
You can't be like, "I had a disease and I'm better now," but now you're getting, I don't know. was an odd story. I just thought it was very odd.
Was that all of your ads?
Yes.
In the columns for this month, the glory hole. I didn't really think there was a whole lot to it. But he did recommend the Boy Scout handbook for like your kind of general outdoor advice. We go rockhounding. Rockhounding takes place in the out of doors. So having some type of knowledge base to know things like how do you start a fire and all of that, like Boy Scout handbook would be really good. They made a point to say the pages, which was 576 pages in 1977. How many pages do you think the Boy Scout handbook is today?
What's the page inflation or deflation?
Do you think it's bigger or smaller today?
Smaller.
Give me a page number.
300.
Actually, it's more. It's basically doubled. So the 2019 BSA handbook is 1,016 pages of wilderness outdoor things and skills to practice and all the stuff.
Is it just wilderness and outdoor things, or are they just general life skills now?
I don't.
No.
I mean,
I don't know. Don't Boy Scouts, they do lots of stuff. They're not just outdoor wilderness. They're also like general stuff.
Like what?
I don't know.
How do you know? How do you know? I'm assuming, based upon my extremely limited knowledge of being a Boy Scout,
Maybe
that like it's like merit badges and learning things, and that includes an emphasis on outside stuff and learning with like how to make things.
Where did all the extra pages come from?
I have no idea. I have no clue.
Like how to use technology with the outdoor things?
I have no idea. A doubling seems like a lot. Maybe
one book that's 1,000 pages seems like a lot. You'd think it'd be like 4 volumes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's double spaced the original.
Maybe there's more pictures. I mean, photo reproduction technology has gotten a lot better. As we can see from some of the photos, you're like, why did they put this in the magazine?
I assume there's probably a lot more photos and diagrams and like instructional like color panels for different things. I don't know. I'm not a Boy Scout, so I'll never find out. The frantic fumbler.
Well, you forgot on the glory hole.
Oh.
They did mention that one of the contributors died from Rock and Gem, and it was one of the guys whose field articles we liked. So that's unfortunate that he died. I would have thought they would have said a little bit more other than like, this past winter, it was the guy Xanthus Carson, like he passed away. I'm like, okay. He wrote a lot of articles.
He did.
I would think they'd be like, we appreciated the hobby will have lost something because of his contribution, like something, but they're just like, he died. It's like, oh, that's too bad because he was a good writer. Frantic Fumbler. We get the same Christmas.
We are in December 1977 right now. So, Frantic Fumbler talks about his procrastination issues in his little project column here. One thing he talked about making Christmas card ornaments and just spraying them, spray coating them, like spraying like a shellac on them.
He talked about making, it was a Christmas card, name pin, place tag, ornament, whatever you want it to be. You're not just spray coating it. You're taking alphabet pasta, spray painting the alphabet pasta, gluing that to your rock that you've cut out into some shape like a tree star or a rectangle, and then you glue the pasta to the rock and then you spray coat it. That does not sound like a gift that you want from an adult. I don't know if adults can get away with.
That's something like a kid makes for their
Yeah.
parent, and you're like, oh, thanks, Timmy. That's really sweet. And then you put it in a drawer and you never look at it again.
I don't think macaroni or pasta in homemade items is allowed past age 7, 8, 5. I don't know.
At some point, you graduate beyond gluing noodles to a thing.
Yes.
So, not exactly a project I plan on taking on anytime soon. Maybe we should. Maybe we should exchange noodle-based gifts for Christmas this year.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Please don't give me anything noodle-based. The shop talk this month was also probably, I think, may have been. Normally, I like the shop talks because I do a lot of shop things, and it usually gives me something to comment on. And I'm like, oh, whatever. This is good. This one is really unimpressive. They talked about how you can charge your flat lap with polish, and it's like, right? What if I wrote a column on closing a door, opening a bottle? You're like, come on, it's self-explanatory. Like, if you want to charge a lap with polish, you basically apply the polish to the lap with your finger and you're done. Yeah. Do we need it? We don't need a column for that. That is just low effort.
He was also procrastinated on his Christmas gifts, and he was like, time for a low effort column. Gotta focus on my Christmas gifts.
Yeah. And being that it is December and it is their Christmas issue, they had their annual Make It a Lapidary Christmas article. And
Article.
That's what I said.
I know. Is it an article?
No, it's not. This is a thing we've discussed where it's really like the people that buy advertisements, like, either sent them stuff in exchange for being in this article, or they're just like promoting.
I think that the companies wrote the thing. It's like they'll have like a little paragraph about a thing, and then it'll have the company. I think the companies wrote it because one of them, it said, makes a great Christmas gift. Like, you would never write an article called Make It a Lapidary Christmas about things to give as Christmas gifts, and in your write-up about the product, say it makes a great Christmas gift. I think that the companies wrote the blurbs.
There was an item on it that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
And they had, typically it's a lot of machines and stuff, like stuff you just buy.
Yeah.
They had a nativity scene carved out of coal for sale, which I'm like, I've seen nativity scenes, I've seen carved nativity scenes, but I'm like, coal? You carved it out of coal? Is it like a joke?
Yeah,
where it's like, what do you got? What you got for Christmas? You got a lump of coal, but it's actually a nativity scene.
A lump of coal carved into biblical people.
Yeah, it's so native coal, like natural coal, and not usually the stuff that, I guess you could say with mined coal, but coal would be very carvable. Like, I can see that, and especially if you had an abundance of coal. I wish I saved some of the coal that was in my backyard years ago. That would have been fun to have a piece of that.
But I don't know if someone would be like, great, you gave me a coal nativity set. How special. It's coal, the thing that people joke as being the opposite of a gift. But, yeah, for the right person, that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other than that, it was all just like your standard, like, buy this equipment. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Let's see. Next, we had a little how-to soldering with a poker. Mm-hmm. I don't really get soldering, so I didn't really understand, but it was just like how to solder something small.
Yeah. Basically what they were doing is picking up with a little poker a tiny, tiny ball of solder. Because one of
Right.
your problems that you have, if you're, let's say, making something really fine, like you're doing silver solder and you're working on an earring, and you have this like little spool of silver solder or whatever, and you're soldering, but you don't want to put too much solder on, just a tiny bit. That's hard. So what you would do is take your solder and melt a little bit off and get a little tiny BB of solder. And then you stab it with a little poker. So now you can only apply a tiny bit. You can't over apply. So this is something I do, with glues, micro mounting. I don't take the glue out of a bottle because of the risk of collecting too much. I'll squirt some glue like onto a little piece of cardboard, and I'll take a toothpick and stick that in there and just pick up the tiniest bit of glue, like a microscopic amount of glue. So they're basically doing the soldering version of
A
that.
concept that requires an article to tell you
Not at all.
about? Like, it seemed pretty common sense. I mean, your glue example seems pretty common sense. I assume if someone does soldering, they would figure it
Similarly, you could say something similar about like you open up a can of paint and you only want a tiny, tiny bit of paint. So maybe you just like wipe it off of the inside of the lid or the inside of the wall of the can, and you're not like dipping the brush all the way. That's not.
Yeah,
that's not
it just
article
didn't
material.
Yeah. On to a next one. Another winner.
Winter rockhounding. Memories make the hills glisten.
The concept of winter rockhounding is good, and I would have loved to read how people go rockhounding when it's cold and wintry. That was not this article.
I thought this was so hard to follow. I was like, what are they even talking? Like half the time, like it
was like a stream of consciousness almost. Like it wasn't really about one thing. It was one thing after another. And we had a similar article 2 episodes ago in episode 11. It was at the end, the deep down luxurious mining. This was the same author.
Yeah, it's like...
And that other article, we were like, what is this even about? This one was a little easier to understand.
No, it was like you're forced to sit next to somebody on public transit that's just like talking to themselves.
So I tried to summarize it, and I just got maybe a quarter of the way through. And so it was like, started out and they're like, winter seems to drag on and on every year. It just never ends. And then they're like, until a stranger comes to your town who's interested in the geology, but it's still winter, so you can't take them out to show them. And then they're like, how do people know where to go and find good stuff? I don't know how they know. Maybe they're just not finding stuff but not telling you. Oh, but when people do tell you about what they find, I think they exaggerate because everybody has all these crazy stories and it doesn't seem quite realistic. Oh, when I go rockhounding, here's the things I bring in my bag. Oh, but when I go rockhounding, I don't drive. Other people drive me around. So I don't really know where I'm going and I don't get to choose. Here's a story about one place I went one time. Here's another place I went one time. When I was there, I picked up a rock and there was a snake under it. So I gently put down the rock to not bother the snake. Oh, there's this lady who brings only a tiny bag of stuff with her. She doesn't even have a rock hammer. One time when she was out rockhounding, she found amazing stuff and she was just picking through things with the tweezers. She found better stuff than the people with the hammers, just with her tweezers. Oh, there's this other guy. He doesn't eat on Sundays, so when he goes out rockhounding on Sundays, he doesn't bring any food with him. Oh, one time we were out and the mayflies were just so thick. It was crazy. Another time I brought mosquito repellent and it spilled in my bag. And then I smelled really bad and I had to sit on newspapers in the car so that the car wouldn't smell like mosquito repellent. You know, parents should teach their kids to hammer on rocks responsibly and not just randomly hit the rocks. The kids should know where to hit the rocks. You know, when you're in a mine dump, safety is important. If if you drop a rock, it might go on someone below you and it could hurt them. When you find good stuff, you should brag about it. I mean, you found it. It's worth bragging about it. People like to hear about it. And that was like the first quarter of the article.
Have you ever talked to a little kid and they're in the talkative stage of their life and you're like, what did you do today? And they're like,
That.
They're like, I woke up and then I pet the dog and then I ate the oatmeal and then I washed my face and then I went to school. There was a ball there. I saw a dinosaur. Then math class happened. And you're just like, oh my, like.
Yeah, that's what the article was.
As an adult, like hearing things like that, I'm just like, that is not how you write an article, tell a story, speak about your day.
Yeah, it was really weird that they put that so early in the magazine. Like, it was good, and it was crazy because, I've mentioned before how the magazine pages are, the layout is, where it's 3 columns. I mean, 1 to 3 columns, and this article spanned 12 pages. And if you counted how many columns of article versus ads, it was only 9 columns of article, which is 3 pages. But it would be like 2 columns of ads, and the middle column is the article. 3 pages in a row.
I had never really before this podcast, I've never really analyzed like an old magazine, but like it must be computerized layout software nowadays that like does everything and makes it look like blended and looks good, and people go to school and study publishing, and that's a whole thing, versus just like winging it. And I feel like back then they were just like wing it. There's times in an article where they will like put like 4 spaces between words to like make the spacing fit and stuff.
Because it's like a block of text. It's not like right justified or left. It's whatever the other word is.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look good.
There's aspects to it where you're just like, oh, this is...
I mean, I can't think of reading a modern magazine where you're like 3 columns and 1/3 of the page is actual magazine and 2/3 is ads, page after page after page after page. That doesn't... I mean, maybe I just haven't noticed. Yeah, that was a rough article. I would have loved to hear actually. There was some good stuff at the end. They recommended some books and publications about Maine and Maine's geology and rockhounding there. And some of the places that they mentioned going, they do mention the names. So I guess if we lived in Maine, maybe like it would be hints at where to go, or we'd be like, oh, we went there, and it'd be more an enjoyable read.
Yes.
But we really were like the opposite of Maine, so...
Moving right along with our Christmas theme, the next article, A Quarter's Worth of Silver, a lapidary Christmas tale. And this was kind of the opposite of this other article. It was a very heartwarming article about a couple that owns a jewelry shop, and often a small child would stop by the window and watch them work.
Not just a small child, a small Mexican child. It's important that it's a Mexican child.
Sure. One day around Christmas, you broke my train here. One day around Christmas, the little kid was crying outside, and they brought him in and offered to teach the little kid to make a gift for his mother.
Well, they had to teach him because he only had 25 centavos, yes. And he couldn't afford their fancy jewelry.
So they brought him in and they taught him how to make what I would describe as very arts and craft-esque jewelry, where you basically would melt silver and let the drops like hit a surface and gather on each other, and he made a little cross for his mother. And the article ended by the couple saying, "We learned something that Christmas many years ago. We knew that receiving is great and giving is a greater joy, but we learned from Pepito." Is that how you'd say his name? Pepito? That the greatest joy of all is helping someone else give.
Yeah, do you think this is a real story?
No, not at all. No,
But
I don't buy it. It
also, it was very feel good because it's like a Mexican kid, and they sprinkle in Spanish words where they're like, "It's okay, amigo," and he's like, "I want a gift for my mom, but I only have 25 centavos," and you're like, well, he knows all the words except for the word for cent, and yeah, they kept sprinkling in these like Spanish words, and at the end, the mom comes in and she's like, "Did he steal this?" And they're like, "No, we helped him make it." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
wildly inappropriate. You
That
do
would-
not take
Yeah.
when you see a little kid outside of a building crying. The thing to not you don't go out and take that kid and be like, "Come into my building, little kid. Come behind the counter. I will help you. Burn metal. Let's melt some metal together."
Yeah,
Like,
his mom was like, "Well, Pepito should be home from school soon. Well, he's an hour late. Oh, well, unaccounted time for my 5-year-old. That's fine." Like, I don't know.
no, I think it was a made-up article that was just meant to be like give you warm fuzzies, but that's all right. You can have a warm fuzzy feeling occasionally.
How much silver is 25 cents of silver now?
What silver's like $19, $20 an ounce, and that's spot price. So 22.
How many grams
So
are in an ounce?
you're getting nothing. That basically,
Yeah,
you're
take
getting,
your
you're getting
quarter
nothing.
and melt it down, and that's the jewelry.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a warm enough article to melt my ice cold heart, so they need to work on their writing.
Maybe next Christmas.
Maybe next Christmas. Rock Creek sapphires. You can dig for gem sapphires in Montana. But you already know that because we've talked about this previously on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, we've talked about some Montana sapphires.
Yeah, but not this Rock Creek.
No, this article provides a good overview of the sapphires found in the Yogo Gulch area in Montana. Montana has a long history of sapphire mining. Kind of touched on some of the history, some of the different technical aspects of the mining out there.
It was really not like a trip report, field report. It was more like history of the area, all the stuff that's been found. It's this color and this carat and this color and this thing, and there's this area that's virgin land, and they're planning on developing this, and they're gonna do this, and it was. Did they even go there?
I don't
In
think
the
so,
article,
no.
they weren't even like, "Hey, I went," because it wasn't even open. They're like, "Soon they'll have RV hookups or this and this and this." But it is open now. It's the Gem Mountain.
Yeah. I mean, so a lot of those mines, like, they pass, the names change as they get new owners and stuff. But the basics of it would be there's like a big alluvial deposit of gravels there. And in that gravel, you can find sapphires, and there's like fee digs and stuff. And we haven't ever gone because the sapphires are tiny, and really for them to look good, you have to heat treat them, right? So like, think like very like whites, very pale pinks, very pale blues. But to
Yeah.
get that like those deep, deep colors, it is a heat treated stone. So what you actually get is kind of like a little mini jar of gravel, and you're like, neat.
I mean, I'm
And-
sure that'd be fun for kids.
Well, it's a lot of work. Because
just, like,
you're
picking-
sieving, so like
Yeah.
you're taking gravels and using like a sieve where you like tap it, and all the sapphires being heavier than all the other rocks sink to the bottom. You flip it over and pick the sapphires out. But I mean, I think it's unfortunate. A lot of the way people experience the Montana Sapphire is through the pay dirt bags and boxes or whatever that these companies sell, and they totally screw you, right? Like you pay like $100 and you get like a big old box of gravel sent to you, and they've definitely already picked out the good stuff, and they've left you with some scrappy little bits in there, and you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know,
That's not. If you're like, I'm gonna go rock hounding, and you're like, I'm gonna go pick through gravel for tiny clear pieces of gravel. It's not. Definitely not the kind of rock hounding that we do normally.
I could see isolated cases where somebody would be like, this is completely awesome. Like if you're really into faceting, or especially if you're really into faceting, stuff that you found, that you're really limited, right? So like that would be great. If you have all of the machines and stuff to do heat treating, and that's like kind of your hobby, sure, that'd be fun. But they really like have a family-friendly, good outside activity like angle to them. And as far as feedigs go, no. Like, you know, we've gone to some feedigs, and most of them are really good because it's like shooting fish in a barrel, and it's all right there, and it's easy and abundant and big and cool. And I think that part of the reason why a lot of the opal mines and the sapphire mines don't land in that category is because they kind of suck. I said it. I said it.
Well, it was an interesting history and how it's been operating for a long time, and
yeah, that's kind of neat. Some of the jewelry articles, I'm like, I have a hard time relating to them. But this one, however, sculpting silversmith Larry Roberts demonstrates a new technique in laminate silver. I thought was pretty good. You know, so many of these things are like jewelry that I would never use. I mean, I'm like a watch and wedding ring jewelry. That's my max level of jewelry I'm going to be wearing. Does a watch count as jewelry? I don't know. Sure, why not? You don't see anybody making watches in Rock and Jump magazine, though. So there's going to be some photos on the website, currently rockhounding.com, and you can go check it out because some of the stuff from this article was pretty good. So one of the pieces in here was a silver chain necklace with a large medallion on it of a super aggressive cougar, like growling, showing its fangs. And I was like, this is wild. Like if that was something I had, I'd be like, yes, I would wear that. Giant silver chain, giant aggressive, crazy looking cougar. Amazing.
I mean, it's definitely very different from most of the stuff that gets featured in the magazine.
Obviously, not everything he did was like that. But the idea of taking silver, sending it through a roller mill so that you're getting like really thin sheets, and then taking an image and breaking it up into layers and cutting those layers out. Think like a landscape, right? Where you have like
it's almost like
the mountains in the distance, and then trees and a river going through it, and you cut all of those layers out and stacked them to produce a three-dimensional image.
Kind of like how a 3D printer works.
Kind of.
Where they're doing like layer by layer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, you could always do like lost wax casting or whatever, but I kind of like the idea of just like really thin silver, you cut it out, you stack it, solder it all together, and you're like, that's it. I can see that right now Sarah's looking at that page, and she's thinking, where can I buy this for Jared's birthday so that he has a super awesome, dope piece of jewelry?
And then you'll become a piece of jewelry person. Like, just all I wear is a wedding ring, a watch, and a necklace with a image of a mountain lion bearing its fangs with yellow eyes.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I thought it was pretty good, and obviously the guy is super talented, so kind of neat. Finally, Some actual rock hounding. We have a field trip, olivine bombs, which this is not something that I would typically ever expect to see because it's not really a traditional rock hounding material. People mostly go rock hounding for stuff that is easily displayable, cuttable, lapidary material, crystals, mineral specimens. All the olivine bombs are neat. I would certainly, if we were driving, so this takes place in Southern California near Amboy, off of the old Route 66. If we were driving Route 66, I would 100% be like, let's pull over and get some olivine bombs. And olivine bombs happen when you have a volcanic explosion and you actually have ejection of material and it cools in the air. So that's a critical part of a volcanic bomb. I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was a neat article that, that's something I could see myself, see us if we were in that area, go there, find some olivine bombs, and make a video.
Yeah. They did call them geodes. I didn't really think they count as a geode.
They're not.
Yeah.
That's okay, though.
They had a weird story about how they found them. When they were a child, this dirty man was walking.
Dirty hobo.
Was he walking the train tracks or something? And he got to their house and he was like, I want some. Can you give me something to eat? And so they gave him something to eat. In exchange, he gave him the olivine bomb and was like, I got him from them thar hills. And then he went on his way.
Yeah. Crazy drifter.
He was dirty. They really mentioned how gross he was. It's important to the story.
Yeah, no, I guess he was a dirty hobo drifter passing through.
But he knew where the rocks were.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting angle to take with
add some flair to the story.
With your story there.
Next we got Share the Wealth. What was the subheading on that?
Marge and Clarence Kilgore are symbolic of the hobby's best.
It's a little sad to read articles like this about how great rock clubs were and how great the members were and how giving and nice and friendly, and it's not exactly been our experience. This one was a little bit close to home as it is a club we are familiar with.
So we're in Spokane, and Spokane actually has the oldest rock club in Washington, which is Spokane Rock Rollers.
I think this is the second time, at least, that there's been an article about the rock members from the Rock Rollers.
Yeah. So Marge and Clarence Kilgore were... this is a profile of them.
Yes.
And they were rock roller club members here in town. And they did a lot of more interesting work with rock, making clocks and doing stuff like that. And not necessarily just look, here's a cabochon, a 30 by 40, made 500 of them. So doing some more interesting stuff, which is noteworthy. I looked them up. I know so much about them now.
Well, it also said that the woman, Marge, received awards in the Federation Bulletin competition, which I thought was interesting that there was a bulletin competition. And the newsletter, the bulletin now is such an afterthought that...
Well, so... I would say, in general, rock clubs have peaked, and they are definitely on the decline for a number of reasons. But there are some rock clubs that are exceptional,
yes,
and don't fall under that, and are certainly doing great stuff.
This said the Rock Rollers had 300 members, which I don't know how many they have now, but probably not 300.
And then more than that now.
Really?
Yeah, it's over 500.
Why are they not as good?
Well, so Clarence, he was born in 1894.
Wow.
He was a veteran of World War One, and he passed away in 1981 at the age of 87. So
Okay.
we're in 1977 here, passed away in 81.
Yeah, because I think it said they were members since 1959, and I wrote that they're probably in their 80s at this point when they wrote the article.
So his wife, she was born in 1901, passed away in 1983 at the age of 82. And they're both buried here in Spokane at the Memorial Gardens.
Which one is that?
Memorial Gardens, like on the south side.
Oh,
She had 37 grandchildren and 35 great-grandchildren.
that's a lot.
That's a lot. And
How many children, though? You didn't find that?
I didn't find that.
5 children?
I tried.
10 children?
I tried to find out how many kids they had. I have no idea. I just know the grandkid number.
You're missing a number, but okay. Go ahead.
I assume they had more than one child.
Yes. That's a safe assumption, I think.
So yeah, I mean, they're both like good stewards of the hobby. They're in the club for over 50 years. They both held different positions, offices in the club and in the federation. And I don't know. Yeah, I feel like the federation, clubs in general, even the good clubs that have been around a long time, are like a husk of what they used to be.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the natural order of things, you know, and people can get community and all these other things in many different ways, and they're just less relevant, but there's still amazing shows being put on. You know, everything kind of has its ebb and flow to it. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a resurgence, and someday people will value their newsletters at rock clubs to the point where they compete with them.
Yeah.
I would love that. Oh man, that would be great. There's a couple of newsletters come to mind where I read them and I'm like, yes, this. You know, the Micro Mineral Study Group has their newsletter, which is called the Micro Probe, and it is amazing. They put so much time and effort into this thing. It is so good. Like, it's a lot of club newsletters. They're like, this is the minutes.
Yeah.
This is what happened. We need to raise money for garbage cans. Let's argue now. Here's a summary of the argument at the last meeting. And you're just like, come on. Like, why even like, I get it. You're like going through the stages of the actions at the club.
You're reporting on the club business, and
Many of the clubs are business and politics, internal politics. It's a lot of like, imagine high school for 60-year-olds, and that's a problem. That's not, don't take my words as being reflective of all clubs, but I would say more than half. I think that's a fair assessment. So, but yeah, they really made it out to be like it was, you know,
the place
to be. It was the thing. So,
That's nice that they were such good members that somebody wrote an article about them and submitted it to Rock and Gem.
yeah, no, that's cool. The next article is How to Make a Gold Pendant, an Introductory to Soldering 14-karat Gold. And I don't make jewelry, and I've never worked with gold, but I have done some soldering of like electronics and electrical things. So I kind of get the gist of soldering. I've done brazing. I've done that before. But yeah, I mean, you know, different metals are different, and working with gold is more high risk than silver, and that's more high risk than brazing and doing stuff with brass and copper and all of that. So yeah, they just kind of talked about some of the differences with it, but I don't really have a whole lot to comment on.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
No? Well, the next article I think was actually it. The next article isn't that great, but what I found out because of the article is actually pretty great. Would you like to talk about the next article?
I'm not sure which one we're doing.
The Swoboda collection.
Yeah, so the Swoboda collection, it was this guy, Edward Swoboda, had a very extremely impressive collection. He was like a mineral dealer, so he kept all the best pieces for himself, and he lent his collection to Stanford University. It said once they were able to secure adequate security, he was willing to lend them his rock collection, mineral collection, and they had it on display, and people really liked it, and it was like in the library, so people could go. The quotes were like, the students went to the library to study, but they were so mesmerized by the mineral collection that they didn't even study. And that was the gist of it.
Rock and Gem missed the boat on this one. So, very cool. Or, they're basically like, hey, cool minerals donated to the college. Go check them out.
Not donated, just lent.
Lent. They're lent. They're kind of long-term lending, right? So
Probably he just was like, oh, safe place to store.
they were not his tier 1 collection, right? So
really? I thought it was.
No. So very good stuff, but he had a very significant collection, and they just kind of left it like that. They're like, oh yeah, this guy did this thing. That was the article. Edward Swoboda is amazing and has so many completely wild, out there, epic collecting stories to read about. I'm just now starting to learn about this guy. Actually, Blue Cap Productions, who does videos, they have some videos for sale, on DVDs, but primarily a YouTube channel, and they're very into the mineral collecting world, and they actually have an hour-long video on Edward Swoboda. The life is a life profile video that's an hour and 20 minutes or something that I've yet to watch. But some of the things that I've read about this guy, I'm like, that you could write 100 articles. You could write 200 articles, a big old book about this guy, and it would be amazing. I can't believe this is the angle they took with the article. Maybe we could watch that video. Maybe we should watch the video because I think it would be really interesting to hear firsthand accounts of world-class mineral discovery, being the first person in a mine.
Yeah, it said he had some where some of the minerals were the only sample of that mineral known.
Yes.
And he had them. Some of them, they're like, yeah, we think it's a new one, but the testing isn't completed, so we're not sure.
He had
quite the premium.
He had a massive amount of type locality in his collection. He was the guy when you found something new to be like, here, and he opens up his deep wallet for that rare bird.
Still alive?
No.
Oh, what happened to his collection?
I'm not sure. We should maybe do some digging.
You should put the link to that documentary or video on the show notes.
Yeah. I mean, you can also we'll do that. But
yeah, because I was like, okay, I mean, I'm never gonna go to Stanford to look at this rock collection. And I tried to look at Stanford's website to see if they still have them, but they don't. They definitely do have a mineral collection there, but I don't think it's this collection.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, if anybody is out there and you want to look up this guy, I think you'll be very, very impressed.
Swoboda, Swoboda.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we'll finish this one off on a low note. Minerals in plastic. A safe way to display delicate crystals. And a completely terrible idea. So they're really
I don't
short
think
short
that was
art.
the actual.
What?
Was that the real subtitle?
No, but it did. I
Oh, editorial.
editorialized the end there. Yeah, so it's basically a really short article discussing the idea of taking your very delicate minerals and casting them in resin, which
Wouldn't the resin wreck the delicate minerals?
so two-part,
I mean,
like
depends.
basically a two-part resin, two-part epoxy, and you have you mix them together in the correct ratio, and it hardens, and it's like super clear.
Yeah.
And
But like some stuff, when I think of delicate, I think of like if you poured anything on it, it would be wrecked. Maybe I'm thinking too delicate.
things really aren't that delicate. But if you have a fragile specimen, casting it in resin means it's unsavable. Like you can't get it out
Can't
ever.
undo it. Yeah.
There's no undoing that, right? The way you do it is you get a box. You get a micro mounting box, a perky box, a toenail box. You get a plastic jar, and you stick that thing down there with mineral tack or white glue. Like a lot of my mounting, I use Elmer's glue simply because you can dissolve it in acetone. And very few, and that for none of the stuff that I mount with that would be harmed by the acetone. So like you can always remove it, right? But that's how you take care of fragile things. You don't cast them in resin. Like that's a terrible idea. Like you're never gonna get it out. You're making a forever commitment there. And if it's of high enough quality to where you want to save it and preserve it, you're removing any scientific value to it. If it has that fine of crystal structure, you're going to want to look at it under a microscope, and you can't do that once it's in resin.
This article was written by the editor of the magazine. Mm-hmm. Maybe he was like, we're putting this in, and everyone was like, well, I can't say no to you even though this is a dumb idea.
The only time I ever see people casting stuff in resin, it's like people making like really junky scepters to be like sold as like a crystal with like other stuff in it, and it's like it's like flea market material. Like
I guess, I don't know.
And there we go.
Not ending on a high note here, but
You never know. Next up on the previously Rockhounding podcast, we'll be looking at Rock and Gem magazine from January 1978.
We're going to be reading field trips: California, Nevada, North Carolina, serpent bracelet, calcite, king size chess set, cockle shell bolas, and more.
I don't think we've ever read anything about North Carolina yet.
No.
My prediction is crystals. Next time!